If you're making anything for the internet today, blog posts, articles, you name it, you're not just writing for people anymore. You're actually writing for a whole new kind of web, one that's made up of both people and machines. So the big question is, how do we get good at this? Let's dive in.
So let's just start with the most basic question, but it's the one that really changes everything. When you sit down at your keyboard, who are you actually writing for? Because, well, the answer isn't as simple as it used to be.
And that's because you've got two very different audiences reading your work at the exact same time. On one hand, you've got your human reader. They're looking for clarity, a story, maybe an emotional hook, something they can connect with. But then, on the other hand, you have the machine reader. Search engine crawlers, AI systems. And they couldn't care less about your beautiful prose. They need structure, they need data, they need context. They're just trying to figure out what your content is about and who it's for. Okay, so if we're going to serve both of these readers, we have to get our heads around the new space we're working in. And here's the key. The web page is no longer a flat piece of digital paper. It's something else entirely. A much better way to think about it is as a telescopic page. And what's so great about this idea is that it emphasizes depth. A modern web page is layered, right? It's got text, sure, but it also has videos, links, charts, data, all sorts of things. And a curious human and a smart algorithm can kind of zoom in and explore all these different layers.
And your human reader? Well, they're trying to navigate this whole telescopic world while juggling a million other things. They're living in what the source material calls algorithm-shaped spaces. Think about your social media feeds or your search results. It's a really noisy world out there. They're distracted, but they're also super empowered with infinite choices. So your writing has to be sharp. It's got to be smart enough to cut through all that noise.
So, if our human audience is that distracted, how do we even get their attention in the first place? Well, that's where your other reader comes in. It's time we properly meet your algorithmic audience.
These are pretty much the invisible engines of the internet. And they're not just dumb bots. We're talking about really sophisticated systems that crawl, process, and interpret your content. Their entire job is to figure out what you've written so they can serve it up to the right person at the right time. And the bottom line is, if they can't understand you, you're basically invisible. Facing this new reality means we have to completely change our strategy. The old way was push marketing. It was basically like using a megaphone to shout your message at people. But the new way is all about pull marketing. You create valuable, findable information that pulls people and algorithms in to you. It's a strategy that has to be both human-centered and, this is the crucial part, machine-readable.
So how do we actually do that? How do we write stuff that appeals to a person and a machine at the same time? Well, the answer is all about learning to speak the real language of the web.
I mean, this is the central challenge right here, isn't it? How do you take your carefully crafted sentences, your compelling stories, and make them understandable to a machine that can't feel or infer meaning the way a person can?
And the answer is, you do it with metadata. In the simplest terms, metadata is just data about your data. Think of it like a set of labels or instructions you attach to your content. It's the secret handshake. It's the bridge that connects your human-focused story to the machine's need for structure and context. And this slide really shows you just how much of a game changer it is. Metadata organizes your work by giving it structure. It describes it by giving it context, and it connects it to everything else out there. Ultimately, it makes your work findable and even reusable in ways you might not have even thought of. Honestly, it's like a superpower for your content.
All right, so let's follow this train of thought, because using metadata isn't just some techie trick. It actually changes the entire goal of what we're creating. It shifts us from just making content to building something with real, lasting value.
Because, let's be real, not all content is created equal. We all know this. Some of it is just meant to be seen and forgotten, and some of it is built to last.
The source material has this fantastic metaphor that I just love. On one side, you've got French fry content. You know what this is. It's all about the quick win. It's fast, it's easy to consume, but it's not very nourishing. But on the other side, you have semantic capital. And this is the good stuff. This is the material that builds real, long-term informational value and makes the entire web a little bit smarter.
So, what exactly is semantic capital? It's the knowledge, it's the rich meaning, it's the connections that your writing gives back to the web. It's not just a disposable article. It becomes a genuine asset. It's content that actually grows in value over time because it's so deeply understood by both people and machines.
And this really brings us to the big picture. When you start focusing on building semantic capital, you're not just a content creator anymore. You're actually playing a really important part in weaving a smarter, more connected web for everyone.
And here's exactly how that happens. It's a journey. First, you write an article. At this point, it's just an isolated thing floating out there. But then, step 2, you add that metadata. Suddenly, it has structure and it's intelligible to machines. And that allows it to take the final step and enter a knowledge graph, where it stops being a standalone page and becomes a node in a huge network of connected knowledge. Now, these knowledge graphs, this is the end game. These are the massive systems, like the kind Google uses, that don't just know facts, they understand the relationships between them. A knowledge graph knows that Paris is the capital of France and that France is in Europe. By writing with structure and metadata, you're creating stuff that can plug directly into these graphs, and that's what powers smarter search and way richer experiences for all of us. And it all comes down to this really powerful idea from Teodora Pekova. You don't just make content anymore. You create knowledge graph objects. I mean, think about that for a second. That completely reframes the entire job of a writer in the 21st century. You're not just a writer, you're an architect of knowledge. Which really just leaves us with one last big question to think about. As you go out there and create things for this new web of people and machines, what knowledge will you choose to connect?